Hey kid, don't ever let them get inside your head. They'll tell you what to do in life instead of everything you know that you could get. Don't let them guide your life towards regret. I'll fight for what I love with every breath. My past is filled with things I won't forget. I use them all to push me to my best. So treat the worst of times just like a test. If only I could go back in time, I'd tell myself that everything will end up alright. Just push yourself, test yourself, figure out what you like, and find your limits, don't be rigid, always work towards a prime. Surround yourself with open minds, people can change your life. A few friends with intent can help you feel alive. Find a passion, take some action, and with a little time, just be patient, make a statement, try to enjoy your life. They'll try to kick you while you're down. They wanna rise up while you drown. They wanna fill your head with doubt. They're silently scared that you'll figure it out. I'll make it look like I'm losing, won't bother hiding my bruises. And when they finally think you're wounded, then it's your chance to be ruthless. Make some progress, I can see that they compare. I think everyone's against me, maybe something in the air. Am I paranoid? I swear a void is forming and they're scared. I walk a straight path, not many can say that. I like to play fast, cross me and there's payback. You better pray that I don't see your face at any place that I go. I know you hate that. I've been doing fine, I'm not wasting any more time. I live for the fight and the climb. I think that the pain that's deep inside is what defines. So I won't give up, I'm gonna make it to the top. I don't care what's in my way, I swear I'm never gonna stop. I could fall flat on my face and I swear I will get back up. Cause I don't deserve a thing and the road ahead is tough. They'll try to kick you while you're down. They wanna rise up while you drown.
All right, what is up, Utes fans? This is Joseph back with the Utah Utes Football Digest, and like always, it's been awesome to do this every week. We've got Dante Guardi with us, man. How are you doing tonight?
Just chilling. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to another great week of football. Hopefully, the Utes can pick up a dub on Senior Day and head into Oregon 8-2.
Yep, I'm feeling the same way, man. And we'll talk a lot about the Stanford game here in a minute. I do want to talk about Larry Pilgrim says, did Lions flip as well? Do you know anything about that? Walker Lions?
Yeah, no, I didn't see anything about that. I saw Stanley Ross earlier, but nothing about Walker Lions.
Well, let's find out. That's a big flip. Where are you getting that from, Larry? Fill us in, man. Larry usually knows his stuff.
There was a crystal ball last night. It might have been Walker Lions, might have been somebody else, but I know there was one. So it might just be a prediction, not a commitment.
Larry, tell us where you're seeing that, man. I'd love to look into it. And as you guys come into the video, please do make sure you guys like the video, comment in the chat. That makes the live stream way more fun. And make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oregon week is going to be nuts, guys. I'm going to be bringing you guys a ton of content. It should be a lot of fun. So I'm excited about that. And with that, let's go ahead and talk about Stanley Ross. I'm going to put up his profile on the page here. And as I do that, Dante, tell us kind of what you know about the kid, what Utes fans should expect.
Yeah, the first thing is that he can play both defensive tackle and defensive end, standing at 6'1". I think it was 290 I saw. He's teammates with a couple of other Utah commits, safety Brock Fano Moyana and Kainoa Carvalho. They all go to Kahuku High School in Hawaii. So it's going to be exciting having all three of them on the team. And he also flipped from BYU. So it's always nice to grab a recruit from those guys down south. So super awesome pickup. Another strong commit for the class, and looking forward to see what he can do when he's on campus.
Yeah, kind of wild, huh? It almost feels like every good player from that high school is going to Utah. It's pretty wild. I wonder if there's other – I mean, I'm aware that school is like A lot of people might not know about it, but it is like the powerhouse football school in Hawaii. It's pretty wild. So it's good to have a pipeline from that school, and definitely a way for Utah to continue to grow. Awesome there. So I think that's awesome. But I think the biggest thing for us guys is this season, and it's just 1 year, but I think this season and these past few weeks, I felt it, and I feel like this is the icing on the cake, but the dividing line between Utah and BYU, right? BYU's had some downs, but it really is starting to feel like, we're not only are recruits flipping from BYU to Utah, but it's like we're also starting to pull ahead of them pretty big time in the football areas. Like I feel like it's clearly Utah's the better team this year. There's no discussion about that really, but it's good to see. It's good to see Utah kind of pulling ahead there. Anything else on Stanley Ross?
Not too much. I mean, I haven't really been able to break down the film yet, but I know his teammates look really good. That Kainoa Carvalho is one heck of a player. He can play from the slot, really great speed. So I'm looking forward to looking at his tape and seeing what he can do.
Yeah, he kind of looks like a Hawaiian Britton Covey, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome, man. Well, that's kind of that. One thing I noticed when I was looking at his tape, I tried to break down the tape a little bit. He plays a lot of like offensive line. That's what most of his highlights were. Like, honestly, if I didn't know he was a D tackle, the highlights would make me think that he was a offensive lineman. So I was a little surprised about that. But either way, so that's Stanley Ross. Awesome commit for Utah. He's very strong, very thick, just thick stature. So should be a big time player for the Utes as time goes on. And on that note, let's move into Stanford, guys. With that, I think Stanford's bringing. And you had talked about Stanford that you didn't think they were that good, right, Dante? Yeah. Let me put your thing on the screen here. Dante Guardi, make sure you guys give him a follow. But you had talked about Stanford a couple weeks ago or last week or whatever, that you didn't think they were a great team and that Tanner McKee might be a little overrated. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I believe that's accurate.
Yeah.
But one thing, I didn't know Stanford was this bad. Like, as I looked through the stats and the metrics and stuff, I was a little shocked just how bad Stanford was. So where do you put Stanford among the other Pac-12 teams, Dante?
Probably second to last, with Colorado being last. And I think there's a pretty big gap between like 10 and 11 in the Pac-12. Like, you could put Arizona at 10. I think Arizona is a much better team than Stanford is, top to bottom, personally. And Stanford, they do have some very good players. Granted, like, they're very talented at some positions. But what I've noticed is that it's a lot of inconsistency. It's like they'll have one corner who looks very good, another one who just is the exact opposite. So not a lot of consistency up and down their roster, but the high points are very high. They do have some talented players, but just as a team, it just really hasn't been clicking for them this year. And I don't really rate them that high, honestly.
Yeah, their center is really good. He graded out super well. But that's not how offensive line works, right? It's you want 5 solid guys. You don't want one really good guy.
So. Yeah, no, he's gonna be a really good NFL player too. I know he's from Colorado, and he gets coached by this one guy in Colorado, Matt McChesney. He's like a former Colorado player, and he does a really, really good job producing talent. So I thought that was kind of interesting that he came from him.
No, that's awesome. I didn't know that. This is funny. Larry says, how did Stanford beat Notre Dame, who just beat Clemson? What a weird. And Stanford and Notre Dame have a bit of a historic rivalry, right? They're two of the better academic schools in the country. Yeah, I really don't know. That's a weird one. Honestly, I think really all this situation is that Clemson wasn't as good as a lot of people thought they were. And Notre Dame has to be one of the most up and down teams in the history of football. Never seen anything like this, where they just lose to teams they should absolutely not lose to. And then they win against teams that you think they have. Like, I mean, I don't think anyone was betting Notre Dame against Clemson. I didn't think Clemson was great, but I didn't think Notre Dame was going in there. CKS says, who did Utes grab from BYU? I'm late. They grabbed Stanley Ross, 2 A's. Yeah, so on that note, let's talk about the Stanford team. So I know you said they have some players that, flash and others is kind of inconsistent. Who do you think the Utes should be keeping an eye on and on that Stanford team?
There were a good amount of players, honestly, mostly on the defensive side of the ball, starting off with their defensive end duo, which is actually very good. Like both of them are high quality players and could probably start for most teams in the Pac-12. Stephen Herron, he's been there for a while. I'm pretty sure he's a captain. 16.7% win rate, 32 pressures and 5 sacks on the year. Those are all very good stats. David Bailey as well, true freshman, borderline 5-star recruit from Mater Dei High School, one of the best, or actually the best high school program in the nation. So, he comes from a program that really emphasizes attention to detail and stuff like that. And he's been thriving this year, 17.8% win rate, 24 pressures, 3 sacks. So these two defensive ends are very, very good. And then their secondary, I want to start off with cornerback Caillou Blue Kelly. He was awesome last year, like one of the best corners in the conference last year. This year been a little bit up and down, but he does still have some good things going for him, such as he's only allowing a 51% completion rate. He's got 3 pass breakers on the year, and last year he allowed a pass rating of just 87.8 when targeted. He's got great instincts and moves really fluidly, so he's definitely got to keep your eye on. And then also safety Kendall Williamson. He's taken a huge step up this year. He's allowing a pass rating of just 74.5 and a completion percentage of 52.4. Those are 2 very good players in the secondary, but then they also have a couple guys who are a little bit not on that level. I mean, that's how I kind of describe them. Not top to bottom. They're not the strongest, but the high points are there. And then on offense, wide receiver John Humphreys. He played against my high school actually a few years ago, and my friends on the team said he was the best high school player they'd ever seen. The tape speaks for itself. The stats not really there, but when you watch the guy in film, he's truly a one-of-a-kind talent. 6'5", huge catch radius, solid top-end speed. He was a very highly touted recruit.
You said Michael Wilson?
No, John Humphreys. He's not really up there on the stat sheet, but he's an extremely good player, and he's got great top-end speed, really great catch radius, can make those contested catches, which is huge. And Stanford in general, their team is very tall, especially their offense. Like a lot of their receivers are very tall. The quarterback 6'6", Humphreys is 6'5". The other one is tight end Benjamin Jurosek, who was awesome last year. He's going to be a guy who goes to the NFL, and people are going to look back and say, what college did he go to? Because I don't remember this guy being anywhere near as good, because his game translates perfectly to the NFL. He got great speed, great in the open field. He's also very big and come down with those contested catches. So he's an extremely useful player. He gets used both in the slot, out wide. He can do everything for their offense. So those are the players that I think Utah should definitely be keeping an eye on the Stanford Cardinal team.
Yeah, so I looked at a lot of these guys. I did the breakdown the other day. Benjamin Jurosek is not grading out super well, but I feel like let me take a look. Last year, I remember this guy, and I remember looking at him. Yeah, you look at last year, his grade was significantly better. So, yeah, definitely a guy that could be a threat for sure, any given day. So, and either way, even with the poor grade, he's at a 67 receiving grade, which is, a pretty decent receiving grade. So he could still definitely be a threat. So definitely a guy I wouldn't count out either. Not sure about this guy. Yeah, was there anyone else that you mentioned that I didn't pull up on here? I think it was
I don't think so. Caillou Blue Kelly was the corner. He was very good last year though. He was one of those guys, kind of like Jurosek. But both those players are very talented, like on their own, and they're much better than the grades would say, in my opinion. And they'll be NFL guys.
Cool, awesome. Let's see the grade last year. Let's see what he's got, dude. Yeah, so above average grade last year, so solid player there. For me, it's just a little odd, and I mentioned it earlier. I was really surprised just how poor this Stanford team is, right?
Yeah.
I think they've had some hype because of Tanner McKee, right? When you have a guy that's consistently mentioned in first round quarterback circles, you kind of expect that you're going to be messing with a tough squad here. But even Tanner McKee, he's getting like a good grade. It's like a 73. But it's not an amazing grade, right? It's like a solid, like for quarterback, 73 is good, but not like amazing. And it's just kind of like,
I've noticed with those grades though is that a lot of the quarterbacks just tend to grade out a lot higher. Whereas like
that's different than other positions.
Yeah, it's rare when you see like a linebacker above a 70. Like a 70 for a linebacker, in my opinion, is
very good.
Like an 85 for a quarterback.
That's
kind of the way I look at that. But he's definitely one of those players. Like I really don't understand the grade. I mean, I watch him on film quite often, and I just don't see it. I mean, strong arm and he's tall, but outside of that, it's like extremely minus athleticism. He's terrible under pressure, and he doesn't have a lot of touch on his passes. Like if you notice it on film, like a lot of the fade throws that he completes are very like laser-esque rather than up in the air, drop it in the breadbasket. He doesn't really have a lot of touch or variance on his passes and velocity, which is not something that traditionally translates well to the next level. So a
lot of line drives and a lot of forced line drives, right? I noticed that too. It feels like he's forcing throws that aren't there, and it's like your arm's not that good.
And it's like a lot of the times it does look really well because he's very good at throwing like those posts over the middle where he can throw it on a line kind of. But then when it gets to actually having to drop one in the bucket, throw it over somebody's shoulder, kind of lead them, that's where he kind of starts to struggle. And I personally just don't see it. Obviously, some scouts do. I personally just don't. I view him as one of the lesser quarterbacks in the Pac-12, but that's just me personally. Obviously, like I said, really strong arm. So any given day, he can go crazy if he has to this weekend for sure.
Well, and Justin Herbert wasn't quite as low as Tanner McKee, but I don't know if you remember, but a lot of people were low on Justin Herbert, but the tools were there, right? It was like he's really athletic, a little different than Tanner McKee, but he had the big arm. And I remember thinking that it was a mistake to take him where they took him in the draft, and I was definitely wrong. Like I was,
He's a stud.
It's definitely like these NFL guys, they think very highly of themselves. So I think that arm matters a lot. And if you have the arm and the athleticism, they're interested in you. Yeah. RJ Rupert says, how do you think the Ute defense will make up for the loss of Van Fillinger? I'll touch on that, and then I'll let you touch on it, Dante. So Van Fillinger is our sack leader on the year. I believe he still is, even after last game, unless that changed. But yeah, so sack leader on the year. He's a guy that was going up in PFF grades, but the truth is, RJ, up until about the Washington State game, maybe a game or two before that, Van had not exactly had the greatest season in the world. So I don't think I'm at all like worried that we're going to see a lot less from this team without Van. I'm really sorry he's out for the season. That sucks. I'm excited to have him back next year, but I don't think this team is any worse for wear without him. I think what he could have been as he, got his stride going that he was doing could have been awesome, but it wasn't there yet. So I don't expect to actually see any less. I think Gabe Reed is actually better at getting back there and rushing the passer a little at the moment. What are your thoughts on that, Dante?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Van looked really good in that Washington State game. And like you said before then, it was just a little bit up and down. And had Jonah Ellis not really taken that step forward that he has over the last few weeks, I would definitely be worried because obviously Van, when he actually gets back there, is a sure tackler, very good rushing the passer, and he's also a force in the run game. I mean, we saw last week against Arizona, they broke up 2 big runs, and that was when Utah didn't have Van. With Van, who knows what would have happened? He's a fantastic run stopper, but I think Jonah Ellis's progression throughout the year has been really important for this Utah team, and without Van going forward, it's going to just be immense in general. 13 pressures and 2 sacks over the last 3 games. He's been very good rushing the passer. He's got great speed. So I think with him and Gabe Reed, it's not too much of a loss, but obviously it hurts to be without him for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think if anything, it's more of a depth thing or like keeping guys fresh, right? I don't think Jonah Ellis or Gabe Reed is worse than Van Fillinger, but you do like the idea that you can rotate guys in and out and keep them fresh. So that's kind of a hit. But outside of that, I think talent-wise, we're still Van Fillinger's on the level of those two, but it's kind of like it's not like we're getting a dip by not having him. Rowan says it will be nice to play against a non-mobile QB. Yeah, it's kind of a good thing and a bad thing. Like it'll be a good thing for how our D-line pressures, but we are going to go against a really good mobile quarterback the week after that. So you kind of wouldn't hate the idea of getting another week against a good mobile quarterback to keep finding up those skills. I mean, we have struggled to contain mobile quarterbacks, and I think we'll do well at getting back there and making Tanner McKee worried. But I really don't love, because the thing is, we'll talk about this maybe being a trap game. I don't think this is quite a trap game, but we got to fine tune a few things before we get to Oregon. Obviously, we're not looking ahead. We got to get through this game, but it's like there's still issues that we're going up against a very good Oregon team at home, which beating them at home is hard enough as it is. So what do you think about that there, Dante?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to get a week off. Obviously, Utah's faced some extremely athletic quarterbacks, AR-15, DTR, Caleb Williams, etc. And obviously with Bo Nix coming up, his schedule doesn't get any easier. With McKee, though, yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail right on the head. It is definitely nice to play against a non-mobile quarterback, and I think Utah, the pass rush, will definitely have their fair share of victories on Saturday and make Tanner McKee feel more rattled than he really is. And Utah secondary played very well last week, and I expect that to continue. And against a quarterback that isn't super mobile, you're going to be targeted more than you wouldn't be on a normal Saturday.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then Jimmy Emerson says, sucks we lost Brandon Fontenette as a commit to decommit. Yeah, it was just worded a little weird. But yeah, I hated that. I mean, that sucks. I wasn't happy to see that. Brandon Fontenette's pretty damn good. 4-star safety. Looked like a really good player for Utah. Is what it is, though, man. I feel like Utah is more of a culture thing. The better talent we can get in here, the better it is. But the truth is, if someone doesn't want to be here, it's probably better overall for a team with such a strong culture that they aren't here. Were you pretty excited about Brandon Fontenette?
So there was actually a safety that's committed, or well, he's technically an athlete, but I think he's going to play safety that I thought was better than him. And I was very confused why he was graded so low by 24/7, and that was Matiaki Hilu. I mean, he hits like a freaking train.
Like a truck, dude.
Yeah, I mean, he was just, his film like was just wow. Like I had no idea why he was only like 85, 86. Personally, I thought he was the most impressive player in the class. So I'm really excited for that kid, and I don't think we're going to be thinking about Brandon Fontenette for much longer, even though he is a very fine player and he'll probably succeed wherever he ends up at.
Yeah, and I'm not going to disparage anybody, but I did feel, and obviously this is easy to say after the fact, but I did, sometimes you watch tape and you're like, this guy is underrated, and sometimes you watch tape and this guy, I wouldn't say overrated, but you're like, I don't understand why this guy's a 3-star and this guy's a 4-star. That's all I'll say about that.
With Fontenette, though, I didn't even see his safety tape. I only saw his quarterback tape, and he looked really good at quarterback. And
really, that's what I said, dude. I was like, damn, this guy's a good quarterback.
Highlights, so I was a little bit hesitant, but I trust the graders. I mean, his athleticism looked like it was there, and obviously he has an understanding of how offenses work, so that IQ is really helpful at safety. But I mean, is what it is. We'll move on to the next one.
That's so funny. I said the same thing. Like, I'm surprised we're not recruiting this kid as a quarterback.
Yeah,
it was really good. All right. Larry says Reed and O'Toole along with Ellis are being productive. Yeah, kind of the same thing we were getting at, right? CKS says who is paying him to decommit. Won't touch on that. I don't know anything about that.
I saw TCU offered him like 2 days before he decommitted. So that's
really?
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, TCU's enticing right now. They got a real shot. They got a real shot. So. All right, the next thing let's talk about, is this a trap game? I'll touch on my thoughts first. I kind of touched on a little already, but I think this isn't a trap game because I don't see us losing this game. It's not that we couldn't overlook them. I just feel like for me, a trap game would be more like a below average team going up against us. I feel like this is, like you said earlier, the second worst team in the Pac-12 and one of the bottom 20 teams in college football from what I looked at. They're not a very good squad. So if they were a little better, I'd feel like this might be a trap game, but I don't think this is a trap game. I think this is going to be a game where we're just clearly the better team. It's at home. I can't imagine us losing this game.
Yeah, I trust Utah to run the ball very effectively in this game. And then on the other side, I don't think Stanford's going to have any success running the football. And then throwing wise, like I said, strong quarterback with a strong arm and some very big receivers. So if they're going to make any sort of noise and disrupt this Utah secondary, it's going to be just deep ball, like bombs away type of thing. And I don't think that's a very good way to go about facing this Utah secondary with Zemiah Vaughn playing at the level he's playing at, Clark Phillips obviously doing his thing, and RJ's been absolutely locked down for the entirety of the year. So I think the talent that Utah's in their secondary is going to kind of be what takes them over the top here. And I don't see Stanford stopping the run, and Utah's just going to kind of do their thing and impose their will on the offensive side of the ball.
Yo, speaking of Zemiah Vaughn, let me show everybody something real quick. Now, Dante and I have both been high on Zemiah Vaughn for a while. Like, this is a guy that we both thought a lot of, and I've been talking about him since the beginning of the year. Look at this grade. Look at that freaking grade, dude. A 77.3, 81.1 coverage grade on 307 snaps. That's not that much worse than Clark Phillips, dude. That is awesome. I feel like especially against a team that really wants to throw the ball, you got to love the idea that we can put those two on just about anyone and just let them try. So Definitely. Pretty cool there, man. And on that note, let's talk about, you touched on it a little, that we'll be able to run the ball on them. Let's talk about who you think is going to be really important for Utah. Who do you think is going to have a big game for Utah?
I think all the running backs are going to be very effective, but the number one for me, I'm going to go with Jaquinta Jackson. I mean, I've been very vocal and I've praised him for the move to running back, and I think the upside is extremely high. And he's been showing it. 205 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. He's leading running backs in yards per carry with 5.1, leading running backs in yards after contact per carry with 3.4, and he's forcing a missed tackle on every 4 carries, which is the best forced missed tackle rate out of all the running backs. So he's on a per play basis, he has been the most efficient running back for Utah. And I think in a game where Utah is going to be able to run the ball with no hesitation, really, I think Jaquan Jackson is going to be the guy to be Utah's player of the game for the offense.
Dude, that wouldn't shock me at all. I mean, is the injury? You think he's good?
Fine. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. That'd be really exciting. So, outside of him, anyone else you feel? Larry asked Jackson in. It sounds like Dante thinks Jackson's in. That's a good sign, dude. We got our insider on.
I believe so. I believe so. It didn't look like anything was too crazy. And then for defense, I said Zamiah Vaughn. Personally, I just absolutely love this matchup for him. Whereas last week, I wasn't super confident heading in. Whereas this week, I'm extremely confident. And a lot of that has to do with how we did last week. But really just his blend of size and speed going up against a very tall wide receiving corps of Stanford. I think Utah can keep him like one-on-one versus any of these guys. And then it comes down to like a 50-50 ball. And we saw how good Zamiah Vaughn's ball skills have improved over the course of the year. So I think he's going to be extremely sound here. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets targeted around 5 times and only allows like 2 catches. Last week he only allowed 1, which was awesome. I don't think that's a very sustainable rate personally. However, I do think he still has it in him to play at an extremely high level, and I think he's going to do that once again.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised on that either. So this is a fun one. I like the Wildcat packages with Nate and JJ together. JJ is getting better at blocking too. Yeah, JJ has really shined, but I think last week was awesome to see Nate Johnson, dude. That huge recruit. The film was fantastic coming into Utah. Guy I was really excited to see. And I think what is really cool, I think a guy that deserves a big shout out is Andy Ludwig. The way, because such a big threat when we're in the red zone is Cam running the ball in. And he was like, all right, well, I don't want Cam to get hurt anymore before Oregon. I'm just going to have Nate Johnson run the ball in. It literally just put Nate Johnson in, had faith in him, and made it happen. How do you feel about Nate Johnson's red shirt? You think we should feel pretty safe they're going to keep him redshirted?
Yeah, I mean, if not, he'd have to play in the Pac-12 championship game if that happens, or the bowl game. And I think Utah can make a solid game plan without him for both those games. I mean, You keep Cam healthy, keep him on the bench for those design run plays, put in Nate, and then in 3-4 weeks, I mean, I'm going to assume Cam's 100% in 3 to 4 weeks, and that he'll be able to go and do everything he did for the first 7 games of Utah's schedule, or 6 games of Utah's schedule. So I think the red shirt is definitely the move here. I mean, we know how good Cam is as a rusher, and if we don't need to use Nate, I don't see a reason to.
Yeah. I feel very confident. I can't imagine a situation. I could see, like, literally they could just not play him in the Stanford game at all, and his red shirt's good, basically.
Well, he can play in the Stanford game and then the next 2, and he'll still be good, I believe, right? He didn't play before.
No, you're right. Yeah. You're absolutely right. I'm just saying, like, literally that's all it would take to guarantee it. You know what I mean? Like, just don't play him against Stanford. Like, if we want to work him against Oregon, work him in the conference championship, I can't, I don't even think it's worth talking about. I think he's going to keep his red shirt.
I personally think you should play this week. I think these are the weeks that you need to use him. Like, keep Cam on the bench as long as possible. Let him fully recover, and then bring him back when we really, really need him to be at 100%.
You think about it, man, our 3 quarterbacks, obviously I'm sure there's some teams out there that have really like just running quarterbacks. Like that's like remember Georgia Tech's old like wing tee, like that sort of thing. Like I'm sure there's teams out there, but I feel like when it comes to quarterbacks that are decent throwers, we have the 3-headed monster of running quarterbacks, dude. They can all run the ball really well. Rowan says, I hope Nate can show them get some throws in this week or against Colorado. I hope so too, man. Camden says, hopefully we can use Nate in only 3 more games so we can get his red shirt. Yeah. And I think we all feel pretty confident that's going to happen. But I agree with what you were saying, Dante. I feel like if we could not have to use him against Oregon, if we could really let him get in there and look good against Colorado, Stanford, just get some reps against some lower end competition. CKS says, can't begin to state how much I am impressed with JJ. His entire attitude and skills are a bright spot for the Utes. Yeah, really. I mean, even the stuff we didn't see behind the scenes, but you got to imagine where one of 2 things must have happened. The coaching staff went to JJ and said, hey, we just don't see you getting a ton of reps at quarterback. We want you to move to running back. Or JJ said, hey, I don't see it happening. I want to contribute more to the team. Is there a chance I could switch to running back or wide receiver? So one of those two things must have happened. And either way, that should give you a glimpse into the fact that JJ is probably a pretty cool dude and just a Utah guy. So pretty cool there. Let's touch on one thing. I just want to get your opinion on this, Dante. So, I hate to come off like a hater, and you don't have to touch on it too much, but for me, one guy that's been a disappointment this season has been Solomon Enis, right? And I know that grade's really bad, and maybe his play on the field isn't quite as bad as that grade shows. But, I mean, do you think we should be putting other guys in there instead of Solomon Enis, or do you think it makes sense to keep putting him in there? Because just for my opinion, I can't imagine why we can't get some of these other guys some reps. I know a lot of these high grades are really low snap counts, but I mean, some of them aren't. Like, I don't understand where Solomon Enis gets so much playing time over these guys.
Well, he's been in the program for about 4 years now, a really highly touted recruit coming out of Arizona. He's a fine blocker. He's got pretty good hands, long wingspan, so he can come down and make some nice catches. But then at the same time, you look at it, and I don't really see who to put over him. Maybe Mekhi Cope, but the rest of the guys, I believe, don't really fit that same mold that he does. They're more useful, more in the slot rather than out wide. And Solo has been very productive as a blocker, and I think that is kind of what's keeping him on the field. And for him, I mean, he's catching the ball when it's thrown to him, I believe. It just really hasn't been thrown to him all that much, and he has been injured a little bit throughout the course of the year. But I think he's earned his stripes for sure. I mean, he's been a productive player for the last 4 years now, I believe, and just doing everything the coaches ask. I think he's pretty much earned his stripes.
No, yeah, I get it. Maybe I'm just a hater. I just, for me, it's just every week I feel like it's just a receiver out there, and I do get what you're saying. He's a really good blocker, and he is a good player, and it's his last year. You want him to see him get the reps, but it just feels like he just has been a non-factor this year. It's sad. I can't imagine. I agree that it's like, no one else really fits his mold, but it's like, I can't imagine we couldn't find some other formations that might require a smaller receiver every now and then. You know what I mean? But
I think we do a good job of doing that, honestly, because you look at when Jalen Dixon gets in the game. I mean, pretty much every time he's on the field, he scores a touchdown, and that's been kind of his role. Like, I kind of like what they're doing.
But then why not put in Jalen Dixon more? Why not?
I don't think he can play. I don't think he can play out wide like that. I don't think he has the ability to block at that high of a level for an offense that runs the ball more than 50% of the time, like Utah's does. Personally, that's just the way I look at it. Because those two guys, like Money Parks, Jalen Dixon, they're great from the slot because they're small and speedy, and they're great off those like play action passes when you have them run a mesh or something deep, going deep, something like that. Like, I think they're used in the perfect way possible, most efficient way possible. And then for Solo, I think the way he plays just kind of fits how Utah operates on the first and second down, like running downs.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe I'm just ignorant on that, I guess. I don't know. I hate to like seem like a hater on him. Every week I'm hoping we can get other guys more involved. But it is his last year. I'm sure that's a factor as well. So
yeah,
it is what it is. Everyone in the chat saying I think Parks needs more touches. I like Parks catch wise, but Parks is more like a Jalen Dixon, a smaller guy. And on that note, I'll touch on some of the guys that I think are keys to the game, and I'd love to get your thoughts on them. So I think Tavion is going to be a big one. So I think he's been really, from everything I'm seeing, it feels like he's been pretty mature recently and really doing things a little better when he's on the sidelines, that sort of thing. And he's out there playing special teams to kind of humble him and have him put in the effort. So I would imagine we're going to see Tavion get more carries. He did well with the carries he got last week. I really have an inkling that this is going to be a huge game for Tavion. I'm going 100+ yards for Tavion. I think it's going to be a big one for him. I think he's actually going to get a good chunk of the carries and earn a big role before we go to Oregon. I see it going that way. And then defensively, I think it's going to be Gabe Reed. I think Gabe Reed is going to have to step up with Van Fillinger taking less reps, and I think this is a great offensive line to do it against, right? Their tackles aren't terrible. And I think Gabe Reed's a really good pass rusher. They don't run the ball well at all. They're going to want to throw the ball. They have a quarterback that doesn't run around. You're going to have slightly longer to get back there and actually make the pressure before he tries to scramble out. I think I wouldn't be shocked to see Gabe Reed have 3-4 pressures, maybe 1 or 2 sacks. I think that'd be pretty big. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, with Garrett Reed, I really hope so, because obviously, I mean, he played for Stanford for 5 years, so a little bit of a reunion for him, and it'll be cool to see him ball out against his former squad. And then with Tavion, I mean, I'm just going to leave it out as I hope so, because week in and week out, I don't really know what to expect. Like, I'm really rooting for the kid, and I really hope that he gets going, especially before this Oregon game. But I'm just not really sure. Like, I'm not really sure what to make of his whole situation. I hope you're right. Like, I really do, because when he's on, it's just another level of this Utah offense. It's just another beast to have to tackle, and it's not easy to tackle him. So what's there not to like about him getting 100+ yards? So I'm on board with everything you said, but with Tavion, it's just like, I hope so, because at this point, I don't really feel like I can trust that whole situation.
Yeah, I feel that 100%. It's a bold take, but I feel like last week made me feel good, man. The kickoff reps for Tavion and him continuing to be humble makes me feel like this is a good game for him to get the engine turned up again. And then, man, how nice would it be to have a weapon like peak Tavion heading into Oregon? That'd be
beautiful.
Good one to have.
Be a sight to see.
Jimmy says, I really think Diabate will get some D end reps. Well, let's say I hope he does. Not sure about that. I know he's grading out really well in run defense. He's which is funny, because previous years, that wasn't his thing. He didn't grade out well in run defense. I know the old Florida coach would just have them rush the passer and not worry about the run, but still, it's weird. He's doing really good against the run, so good for him. Outside of that, though, man, please make sure all you guys do like the video. It goes a long way. It helps get it out to more Utes fans. And comment in the chat before or after the video, or during, or whatever. Obviously not before. Sorry, spaced out. But Dante, anything you want to say before we get out of here, man?
Not too much. Not too much. Obviously, Utah 4-1 against Stanford since joining the conference. Have had some great moments against them, like 2013, and then that road win in 2018. I was actually at that game, so it was pretty special, because Utes were struggling, and they put a 40 burger on Stanford, who was ranked in like the top 15 at the time. So a lot of good moments against these guys, a lot of fun moments. I'm just really hoping that we don't get too lost and look ahead to Oregon and get caught slipping. I think that's the number one concern. Just stay on track. The seniors hopefully have a big day. Their last home game at Rice Eccles. Talked to Gabe Reed and Devin Kafusi last night. They seem very excited and are thankful for everything Utah's done for them. So I think it's going to be a good weekend. I'm really hoping it's going to be a good weekend and carry on that energy to next week when we go to Eugene.
Yeah, man. It's hard. I'm sure it's hard for the players too not to think ahead. That's such a big game, man. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a sick week. We'll do something big for the Wednesday live stream next week. We'll do something fun. All right, guys. We will see you later. Like I said, make sure you guys like the video. Make sure you guys follow Dante Guardi. I got his name on the screen there. Awesome to have him on every week, guys. And have a good one. Go Utes.
Go Utes.